Okay guys, this is Chris from Almost Legit Garage, and today is a continuation of the PCV delete that I had done previously. So basically I wanted to try both the PCV delete and the catch can together. So what I had done is the bypass of the little tubes right here. Basically just a U-bend goes in. But this is kind of the next level, which is a catch can. Now, because I already had that, I didn't want to go with a factory or a aftermarket company's kit, so I bought a cheap but anodized aluminum, kind of nice for what it is, catch can off Amazon. And I'm kind of glad I went that route, because now I have these reservoirs in the way, and normally the kits want to set that right about there and it really interfere. But I'm also going to be able to use these reservoirs to my advantage. So my mounting solution for them is I just cut out little grooves where I can just zip tie it right here. Then I got a little bit of hefty electrician's tape to avoid scratching the reservoirs or whatever. But that is my solution for that, and then I will show you the lines I made up. And this is all done on the cheap. I'm kind of a cheap person when it comes to this kind of stuff, because it's really not super critical. Okay, so I got that installed on there and it worked out pretty well. It's kind of, it's pretty solid on there. If it turns out that it's not solid enough, I'll come up with a new strategy, but I figured for now that should work pretty good until I find out otherwise. Okay, so then for the line, I made these up earlier because they were kind of a pain in the butt, and I really didn't want to show it on camera because I think this cheap braided wasn't exactly the best choice for me. But anyways, I got those on. The coating's a little messed up, but all that really is there for is abrasion resistance. So what I did was I made a loop with it to start with. So I basically just put one end on one end and one end on the other, and that allows me to kind of root it in here and find out where I need to cut it to make it work or make it work out. So I'll just make a mark there, cut it off with the cut-off wheel, and basically the reason you make a loop with it is so you can kind of tell where the midway point is, and so that's your limiting factor for where this can go, is that midpoint. So as long as you know that. And I decided to go with like the hose barb style down here instead of the ends. Number one, because that's what this catch can came with, and number two, because it's kind of a pain to fit those ends on there. So I just figured, what the heck, I'll cut it off, put a clamp on it, and it'll all be good. So that's what I decided to do. I might update it later if I feel like it's trashy or whatever, but I'm not really huge concerned with it at the moment. So I'll get that marked and cut off. Okay, when you go to cut AN lines, or cut the braided lines, these are nylon coated, but there's still stainless steel fibers in there. All you want to do is, or one of the things you want to do is just wrap some electrical tape around the middle so the fibers don't fray, and then you're just going to hit it right through the middle with a cutoff wheel, and you can kind of make it come off a little cleaner if you cut from one side than cut from the other, but either way it works out pretty good. And then we can put this line on. Alright, once it's cut, you can put the first line back in and put it onto its new home. Leave the electrical tape there. Your clamp will go around that and nobody will notice, and it'll also keep the fibers from fraying, so that's what you want to do. Then you can throw your second one on and measure it up, mark it, and then cut it and do the same thing. Alright, and when that's cut off, this is what you end up with. This line running there right into the catch can. I forgot to pick up hose clamps for that. I thought I had some here, but I didn't. So I have to run out and grab that. But that'll kind of show you the gist of it. And in just a second, I'm going to show you how to make isolators here. Because basically you just kind of don't want this rubbing on too much. Actually, yeah. Basically we're just going to zip tie it so it can't run on anything. It's actually got the stainless core to it, so you can kind of actually manipulate it a little bit by hand, and it kind of has a little bit of memory to it. The only other thing that you want to watch out for when you're doing the routing like this is basically if you're running an engine cover, like I am, because I'm still running the factory intake, I'm probably going to have to trim it out to get these lines in their position. And even after you trim them, you're going to want to put like something additional to prevent rubbing right there. But just keep that in mind when you're running it, and of course, you know, you don't want to watch out and make sure it's not pushing against anything or any hard lines or anything like that, because eventually, you know, if two things rub together long enough, it'll wear through. If you ever look at the wood rails on like an old hiking trail, they're down into the fibers or whatever, and that's just from people's hands rubbing across it over time. So erosion can happen even if it's, you know, nothing hard, nothing sharp or whatever, so just keep that in mind. The braided helps it last a little bit longer. So you guys know, I probably had about, I would say 2 foot, maybe 18 inches of leftover here, and I had bought 6 foot of the braided line. I did end up using probably 8-10 inches of it, just trying to get these fittings to work out. It's a little bit hard to get the braided and everything down into the end of this collector here, but I managed. But anyways, that's basically how it sums it up. Now let's talk about the reason why I decided to go with the Catch Can over the PCV delete. So the PCV delete was great, except for it just had a couple little problems. And I'm going to take the camera over here and plug it in because I forgot to charge it like a moron. Okay, so the PCV delete had just a couple little problems. And number one, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to lose that with the Catch Can install, is the car doesn't idle as smoothly as it used to. And part of the reason for that is because Volkswagen uses a PCV under pressure, or under vacuum, at idle speeds. So basically, without that vacuum pulling out the crankcase, it's not pulling the pistons down and up and equalizing the pressure from the pistons moving up and down. So basically what that's going to do is just kind of give you a little bit choppier of an idle. It's not really anything noticeable, but you do get a little bit more vibration in the car when these things are super smooth out of the factory. So you will actually notice that. Number two is coming off the highway after a long drive. On the next startup, you got a little bit of a puff of smoke, and you know, you could kind of smell the burning oil in the car. And I think that what that really is I'm going to take you over to the car and show you how this PCV system works. So basically, combustion gases come up through here, and in the factory setup it would either go to this port on the intake if it's under a vacuum condition, or if it's under a boost condition it would run through this rear PCV back here. Now this feeds straight into the turbocharger, so if you're ever seeing oil in the turbocharger, it's simply because of that. It's nothing really wrong with your turbo most of the time. The turbo sound, or turbo bad, or a bad turbo is usually characterized by like a high-pitched dental drill sound. But anyways, it runs into there. So what the PCV delete does, which basically just loops this together, pumps all the stuff through there. So basically you're getting oil built up into the intercooling system, and you know, basically just kind of sits there and sucks up as the air passes by it. So you're going to get a little bit more oil into your, a little bit more substantial oil burning instead of the small amounts of oil that you used to have with the normal PCV system. So that's kind of why you'd want to go to a Catch Can, because the Catch Can basically, it comes in the end, and there's a screen in there on a baffled Catch Can, which is what you always want to run. And that screen knocks the oil out of the air, and it collects in this container, and then the cleaned air goes out the out, and then it would go back through the rear PCV. Conveniently, this cheapo one, which I'll try to link on the description, comes with a little dipstick so you can make sure it's full. And you know, I'll do a update video down the road and show you kind of, you know, how much I get out of it between, you know, or how long it takes to fill that up and whatnot. But anyways, that's your catch can install. It's pretty simple. Like I said, some of the kids put it over here. I decided to put it over here because I didn't have room for the other. But honestly, these are really simple to install, really simple to make. This plate here, I believe, is about $60 or $70. That's the adapter plate. I think it was $8 a piece for the Dash 10 AN fittings. You can also get these with the hose barb end like you have over here, if you just rubber hose to a cheap catch can and call it a day. That's one option. I just thought this looked a little nicer, and most people are going to be focusing up here, not over here, when they do look at your engine bay, if I ever do get an actual intake. So I figured it'd make things look a little cleaner, a little cooler, and plus AN fittings are just badass. And then you have your little block off plate here where a vacuum port used to come out, which is nice because you can put a boost valve in, or a boost sensor in there and run a boost gauge. But anyways, that's a catch can install. I'll let you guys know how it works out in the long run. Watch for that video. As always, like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if there's anything I did wrong, or you could see I could have done better, or just wanted to comment and say, hey, cool video. Anyways, see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Okay, quick update. I had to do a bit of an airbox mod to get the factory airbox on. So I trimmed up here, assuming that was the only thing I was going to run into, but then it turned out there's a nice ridge that connects here, and the hoses were hitting that ridge. So I took those ridges out and I put a couple layers of foil tape on it, and it should hopefully be fine. I'm going to check on it after driving it for a little bit and see. Hopefully it's good, and I don't have to do anything more. I've thought about just going ahead and ordering a cold air intake, but unfortunately with all of that stuff there, I'm not sure if I can fit a cold air intake, and I didn't even think about that to begin with. But we'll see what I have to do to make it work, but this is what I'm trying. I could actually probably go over that with some fiberglass, make a fiberglass piece and then use some adhesive to put it in there if this doesn't work. So this is just the quick and easy fix with what I had laying around the house.